And now, back to our speeches, I would like to introduce Glaucio Pessoa, who was born in Recife, Brazil, in a Spiritist family. In his lifelong involvement with the Spiritist movement, he has coordinated mediumship in Spiritist youth groups. He holds a master's degree in electrical engineering and currently works and resides with his wife and 2 children in Atlanta, Georgia. Glaucio will be presenting the topic, Material and Spiritual Aspects of Population Growth. Please help me welcome Glaucio into the stage.
Good evening. I'd like, first of all, to thank the organizing committee to provide me with this opportunity to present my work. And it's going to be shown shortly. One of the interesting aspects that we see, first of all, of course, is material and spiritual aspects of population growth. And it's been a long concern. We see, for instance, a mathematician by the name Malthus, who around 1796, he was concerned about the way in which the population was growing exponentially, meaning growing extremely fast, and the subsistence, the means that Earth would provide for that population were growing arithmetically or were not following. Interestingly enough, what we have learned about life on Earth is that life appears in different ways, different shapes, and in the most amazing places. For instance, there is life on Earth which is based on arsenic, which is a poison to most of life forms, but there is bacteria which is actually based on arsenic. So what this teaches us is that life in the universe is, that the universe is supportive of life, and that life can exist in the universe in the most creative ways, in ways we can't understand, the ways we can imagine, and in ways sometimes we cannot even imagine. And just think about it, Earth is just one planet, but there is there is not likelihood, there is a very strong evidence there is life in the universe elsewhere. Speaking of life, and speaking of the life capability of life in the universe, our species, the human species, has been extremely successful. For the first 500,000 years of our existence, our growth has been pretty much, there has been practically no growth. However, what we saw beginning in the 17th century is that there was a reduction in death rates. Not only that, in the 19th century, that's when you start seeing this exponential, this incredible growth of humans. For instance, in the beginning of the 20th century, there were 1.6 billion of us, 1.6 billion humans. When we exited the century, at the end of the 20th century, there were over 6 billion. Right now, we're close to 7 billion. In about 14 years, we should reach about 8 billion humans, and in 4 decades, we're forecast to hit 9.2. We see a forecast here, and just look at this graph. It's very interesting to see that in the more developed countries, we see an almost no growth, almost zero growth. Actually, in some countries in Europe, there is a negative growth. Most of the growth that we see on Earth right now is in less developed nations. And that started happening especially after the Second World War with the advances in medicine. So what factors have been contributing to the growth of our species? It started with both the agricultural and the industrial revolution, which provided us improved life standards, and with that, of course, less famine, better availability of food, and less widespread disease. And also improvements in labor conditions and advances in medicine. Just think about it. I mean, if working nowadays is hard, and sometimes it's so stressful, just imagine 200 years ago, believe it or not, it was worse than what it is right now. And that's all, you know, everything is good news. All I have to talk about today is good news. But that poses some challenges for us. It poses technical challenges. Let's start talking about the technical challenges that brings to us as humans. First of all, land management. We have more people and want to make sure that our brothers and sisters, that they're properly placed, and to avoid also what is an inflation in the urban population. Food production, I mean, more mouths to feed. So we need to better produce and distribute food. Water management, this is a big one. Josiah and João, they were talking about the fact that there's about 1 billion humans on the planet who do not have access to water. And they also mentioned the famous water walks, which force people to walk several miles to bring water to their homes. Environmental impacts, we cannot discard that one. Energy generation, more humans again, they require more energy. Infrastructure, roads, telecommunications, electricity, and everything that makes human life, makes modern life possible. Healthcare, that's a big one. And of course, since people are living longer, we have issues. Now we have the challenge of an aging population. So how to address this matter, not only from a medical standpoint, not only from a physical standpoint, but also from an emotional standpoint. And of course, disaster relief. But also we have the so-called moral challenges, like I was mentioning before. In the last developed nations, that's where we see the greatest growth in human population. And as the populations grow in those countries, those nations still have to fight and still to survive and struggle for very basic needs. So there are a few questions. First of all, how much assistance should the developed nations provide to less privileged countries? And as important as what's the best means to provide such aid, we want to make sure that the right people receive the right aid. A big one is human migration. Because what's going to happen is populations in struggling areas, they're going to migrate into areas that provide better opportunities. We see migrations within regions, within countries, and of course international migration, which we know as immigration. And this has a big impact in the urban areas. So how to address immigration, or should I say migration issues, and also another question is how to mitigate the cultural clashes, or the technically known as cultural shocks. And the last moral challenge I would like to mention is stability, because all countries, they should strive to provide an acceptable life standards for its citizens, and also maintain acceptable levels of civility and political stability. But we have seen that has not been always the case everywhere. So the question is, when and how should countries intervene in each other's social and political matters? But any kind of technical challenge or moral challenge we can talk about, they're dwarfed by the major challenges for us, because we're spirits. So the major challenges are the spiritual challenges. Just remember, and we've been discussing this several times today, we're moving to a better earth. Our planet is moving from a world of trials and tribulations into a world of regeneration. So we see that a greater number of spirits, they need to reincarnate, because they need to have more opportunities to growth and to learn and perfect. So the question is, are there enough spirits on earth? And yes, there are enough spirits on earth. The last account from 1950s, Emmanuel, the spirit, that's the one who provided us, and the estimate is over 22 billion spirits between incarnate and disincarnated spirits. And in the event that would not be sufficient, just think about it. This is not the only planet. Like we were talking before, the universe is rich in life. So there's other opportunities for spirits. All the spirits from other places, other planets also come and reincarnate and help us in our process. Now, again, since the Earth is transitioning, we see a larger population, we also see what do we see? We see different spirits with different backgrounds also coming. Again, more spirits are reincarnating, more spirits are needing to evolve and to learn. So, and some of those spirits are going to be reincarnated they don't have one of their last opportunities, or even sometimes their last opportunity. So those kinds of clashes, those kinds of difficulties that come when we have to deal with spirits with so many levels, they create the impression that our planet is degrading morally, that our planet is not progressing, that is regressing. And that's not true. Just think about it. The same way that whenever one needs to remodel his or her house, he has to gut the house, and for a while the house looks very ugly. So just think about it also, as the earth goes through this transition, and as we see all the spirits coming and trying to reincarnate, then that creates some difficulties. It's very important for us to remind that progress is a natural law, is one of God's laws. In the same way that spirits evolve, the same way it happens to planets, and in our case, our planet Earth, it is evolving, it is getting better. It means something to each one of us. So the fact that the population is growing needs to mean something to us, besides the fact that it's going to be harder to find a parking space. So But just remember that we're actually more immortal spirits, and that's the biggest point. We should never forget that. So it means to us more opportunities. Just think about it. It's more opportunities for us to reincarnate. More opportunities for our loved ones to reincarnate as well. We should never forget that we never stop loving people, even as we migrate through our different existences. More opportunities for experiences. Think of all the challenges we need to face. And also more opportunities to grow and learn through those challenges. In conclusion, I mentioned Malthus, and in response to Malthus, Allan Kardec, in the Spirit's book, Book 3, Chapter 6, he mentions, he stated, the divine overruling always provides for and maintains equilibrium. God permits nothing useless. Man sees but a corner of the panorama of the universe, and is therefore unable to perceive the harmony of its various departments. So, all of our challenges, including population growth, they serve for our betterment. And God, in His wisdom, always fosters balance in the whole universe. But in the event that Earth becomes too crowded and too difficult for us to live in it, just keep in mind what Jesus once said. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And that's in John chapter 4, verse 2. So just think about it. This is our home. Earth is a speck of dust in this humongous universe. So just keep in mind that even as Earth gets stranded in space and resources, we have this whole universe for us, and there's an infinite number of opportunities to continue to learn and to progress. Thank you so much for your attention.